When you install the software, and you can get this from the website, from your Manage Autodesk site, and you can download it, and it is a software that adds additional functionality. If you saw a webinar that we did about a month and a half ago, it was talking about how to install it, or what you would go through to install it, and then what would be the end result. So this part is the same right here, and it allows you to validate your factory layouts. But I mentioned in that webinar that you know, it's centered towards factory layout, but you don't need to be doing it in just factory layouts. It could be used for office layouts. So just think outside the box here, even though it says factory. And it is part of the design collection, the product design collection. When you install it, Factory Design Utilities will add a tab to the AutoCAD and a tab to the Inventor. And it'll have factory, and then it comes with specialized tools that you can use, and to allow you to create those layouts, but also a thing called assets. And you'll see, like in a section there on the ribbon, you actually see that there's a asset builder, factory assets, you know, so you have the tools to be able to build your own. And even though I'm kind of centering it more towards working from AutoCAD to the Inventor, you can also start with the Inventor. So it's whatever you want to start with. So it is bi-directional, so you don't have to worry about that. So when you do install it, you have assets. Think about those assets. If you're thinking from an AutoCAD to Inventor, because a lot of times people have AutoCAD layouts already done. So that's why I kind of centered this more towards the AutoCAD to Inventor workflow. And if you already have those layouts, I know I did at a previous company I was working at. I had these blocks that were laid out, and I would just arrange them and lay them in. So if you start off with the AutoCAD, you're basically doing the same thing. The only difference is here now that you have an asset browser in each of the software versions, that you're able to have the system assets that come out of the box. You can have user assets, and you can also have folders that you can have special assets. And you're going to see this when I get to the software. You're actually going to see a couple extra folders as compared to the image that you're seeing in this PowerPoint right here. So, and then of course you have the favorites that you can populate. So you can arrange your assets just like you would in the AutoCAD software, but then also think of it like from a project standpoint in the Inventor software. So you set your project up in the Inventor, and you have your libraries and various things that are set up. It's the same thing, and that's how you can manipulate it to see how they work. Now, probably one thing I should point out is, even though you'll see me working under the AutoCAD piece, it is linked to the AutoCAD Mechanical. I just happen to be working under, or will be working under, the AutoCAD portion of AutoCAD Mechanical. So when you do install it, if you haven't already, you will have to install the AutoCAD Mechanical. Once you start getting into the layout and how it would work, and let's say you started with the AutoCAD, and then you decided to move it into Inventor, or as you can see here, Navisworks, but we'll be looking at the AutoCAD and Inventor workflow. There are tools in the factory ribbon that will allow you to click a button and allow you to move them automatically over to the other software, so depending on which one you were starting with, or if you want to work in both. As an example, like today, I will be going back and forth with both of the softwares. So however you want to work. So if you decide to work in the AutoCAD, you can just keep using the templates that you've been using all along. But if you decide to go from the Inventor side, they actually have a layout. It's called a standard factory layout assembly file. And that one starts with what would be like a factory floor. And you'll see it when it opens up in the Inventor. And You could make special templates in the AutoCAD if you wanted to, but like I said, you could continue to work with the one that you were already working with or the templates that you're already working with. So I'm going to switch over now to my screen. And what you're going to see is my AutoCAD portion. And just as a heads up, we're having some issues with the flipping back and forth to the different screens. It's not looking at just my monitor, it's actually looking at the software. So even though I wanted to have a smooth transition where you would actually see this when I actually move to the inventor and back and forth, we will have a little bit of a gap, but you'll have to trust me. It is actually moving automatically. So when I pick these tools here, going to the inventor, it is happening automatically. And the same thing when I go from the inventor back to AutoCAD. And for whatever reason, in this session, it's not looking at my monitor. We're having a little bit of a glitch there, and it's only looking at a particular software. So I will be switching back and forth through the software to show that screen. But in this layout that you're seeing right now, this actually came from a bigger layout. And this is what I'm talking about. You can start with the AutoCAD portion that you already have. And this is why personally, I kind of like this workflow, even though I love Inventor. If you're already doing layouts and they're already in AutoCAD, I think this makes a lot of sense. And the portion I'm looking at is right here, right in the middle, right there. And these can be XREFs, and matter of fact, that's what this is. This is an external reference. And you can have them, so you got your master layout, and then you have your different cells of the factory as external references. That happens quite often too. So all of these could be that. So I'm looking at the individual cell, and that's what this file is. And just to save a little bit of time, I actually put what's called a chain asset in here. And when you look at these red areas, they are the automatically adjusted lengths because there's a predefined length, but I have it automatically adjusting. And that's actually a system asset that you look over here on the left. Here's my system, the one that's highlighted. This is my asset browser, and I pulled that chain or that fence out of my asset. So as an example, I can search, and I actually used that one right there. And that's how I was able to bring that one in. So I just wanted you to see how that would work. And what that did is it worked on a polyline, basically. I said, hey, here's a polyline that represents my asset, which is chained, and go ahead and put a fence around that. And then wherever it had to do customized lengths, it actually turned it red for visualization. So as you can see up here in my factory, I have the factory tab, and I can do my automatically converting over to the inventor. And then here are my factory asset tools. So if I had an AutoCAD file or an inventor file, and this can work on models, part models, or assembly models. So you can turn them into the asset. When I drop one in, I'll show you that the difference is you can add parameters and you can adjust them a little bit more. So I'll talk about it, but I won't do it in here. And even though we won't be doing the point cloud today, we can actually attach point clouds in here. So that's a nice feature too. And I actually scan, as an example, just kind of having some fun, I actually scanned my car into a point cloud, and I ended up dropping that into a factory floor as an example that I've done in a previous webinar. I won't be using that today, but just to give you an idea of how the cloud assets work. So if you can get a previously scanned one, or you can do it yourself, and scannings are becoming much easier today. So putting them together, it can work a lot nicer for you. A little cheaper too. They're also coming down in price. So if we look over here at my asset browser, these are the system assets, and it really comes with quite a few options. So like you can see architectural, automotive, building. I can also go in something a little bit more mechanical or from a manufacturing standpoint. We got conveyors, we have roller, and there's some pallets in here. Here's where I expand it out and I have a roller one. There's even a chained roller conveyor, so I could treat it the same way as I did the fence. So there are several categories. My attitude would be to use something from here as much as possible. Why make a bunch of them? And I say that in other software, if I can reuse files or use files right out of the box, you're much better off. Like as an example, the man, right? Bringing that one in there. So that would be system assets. Now there's two types. There's, they can be downloaded, but there's also cloud, and then you can download them. You can move them to your favorites. So here are my favorites. There's that man I talked about. I did the roller or the conveyor, the roller conveyor. So I have that in here. But I mentioned earlier, too, that I could identify libraries from my Inventor project file, and I can make the software, both softwares actually recognize that. So that's what I did here. In my Inventor project file, I actually have a brackets library. So I could have that in here if I wanted. And that was just for me throwing something extra in here so you could see it. And then I do a quick drive on factory layout, and these are my quick drive assets that I actually use in there. When you see a number over here to the right, that's actually giving you a variant. So all that means is that I have, in this case, I have a 1 station, 2 station, and it lets you know that it's been the asset builder. It allowed me to make 2 different styles of that. And if you think about it, it's kind of like dynamic blocks in AutoCAD. And then the same thing here. I have 3 variants on that. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that too. And then just to make it easier, I mentioned earlier, I can put them down into my favorites. So if I pull in this one as an example, this welding clamp, I just highlight it, left click, hold down on it, drag it in, and now I have the asset sitting right there on my cursor. Now, we can have you still use the drafting settings down here in the bottom. Like I got ortho on, snapping to a grid. So you can do that. And once it's attached to the cursor, now you can just place it. So I'll just place it. I'm not going to really have a rhyme or reason in this particular webinar, just so you can see how things work is all I'm worried about. So I can bring it in, and once I drop it, I can rotate it around. And then I happen to have my ortho on to allow me to position it however I want to position it. And once I drop one, it automatically goes into another one here. And if I need to change it, I can use the tools up on the Home tab to rotate it around. It's still a block. I could grab the block. So right there's the grip for the block. But as I highlight it, you can see that it shows over here on these palettes. I've actually turned on my factory properties palette, my asset browser, and now I'm looking at this. And the variant is showing a single. So I could come in and say, hey, I need to make it a double. So now I update it, and then it makes it a double. And then I can move it around. So if I decided to bring another one in, drag that one in here, same thing, say, hey, I want it right about here, rotate it around, wherever I want it, and place that one. So now that I have some place, so you can continue, finish it out, I'm going to switch over to the Inventor. I'm going to hit this tool right here. And normally you would just see this seamlessly just go right over to the Inventor. And I'm going to do that, but I unfortunately have to stop and share another session or another software. So that's where the little glitch will come in. But when I go back over to it, I want you to be able to see that you're going to get the chain asset in the Inventor software, and you're going to get these 2 assets that I put in here. Then I'll add some items into the Inventor, and I'll go back, and that way you can see that it's bi-directional. So if you do like the Inventor software, you can start with that. So it really does not matter. Even though the interface will look different because it's AutoCAD versus Inventor, you still will have the factory properties, the assets, placing, so however you like to place them. And I'll be showing you how that moves around. So I tend to if I want to come over and, well, there is my first message that's coming up because of that glitch we have in here when I'm trying to have it update. So let me see if I can switch over to the Inventor software. You're not going to be seeing that right away because of the opening right here. All right, so let me just close this one down, and I'll open that back up again. I may have to repeat some things here. So I'll use it to my advantage. I don't know if you saw that update flash. That's letting me know that it's been updated. So now what I just did is I didn't put those other assets back in, but it opened up my Inventor. So what I will do is show you what the Inventor looks like. So now here is what it did when it opened up. You should see Inventor shortly. So here is the asset. Now I had closed that file without saving, and I brought it back up. And here is the Inventor behind the scenes in that time frame that I was switching to the different software. This is that chain asset that I talked about. So it built those, and here are the red marks that you saw in there. It actually built it. So now what I'll do is just do the same thing, but I'll do it in the Inventor. And if it wasn't for going through this webinar and having to switch screens, we would have been okay on that. But let's take advantage of it, right? Take a bad situation and take advantage of it. Here is the same layout or the same asset builder that you saw right here. There's my property. So I turn those palettes on. Here's my factory ribbon. There's my factory asset. So I'm back to, I don't really care which way you start. Here's your browser. So if you really like the Inventor, I'll just go grab the same one. So I'll come in here and say, okay, I'm going to left click, drag that one in, and I'll place that one right here. Now, one of the differences that you're going to see is that you get that classic triad, right, in the Inventor. And on that, with other features in the Inventor software that you work with when you want to rotate it around. So very similar to the ortho. So now I place that one in. I can continue to add other copies of it in this case, but just like in the AutoCAD one, I'll say no. If I highlight it, now I can come in here and say, oh, I want the single versus the double. So duplicating exactly what I did in the other one. So I'll go save on this one. Now I'll save this one and I'll go open it up in AutoCAD. Now this is where I'm going to have to switch over. So it should be okay on this one. It always does, even though you save it, it always does force you to hit the save again. That's just what it wants to do before it opens up. Now this one's working. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to come back into my AutoCAD. And now you should see the AutoCAD, the one that I put in there. So even though we got a momentary gap right here, you can actually see that it did update my AutoCAD one in here. So the asset has the 3D image, the 2D image. So when I come to AutoCAD, it's got the 2D image. I'll just grab this rip, I'll move it over here. And you know what? I'll go in here and turn it to a single, and I'll update it. So we'll just reverse the situation I have here. And then I'll go in and drag this clamping fixture in again. So moving forward, we should be okay on this one. And I'll go ahead and add a man in here. I'll drag this one in. And now I can position the image or the block of the man, say, hey, I want that to be positioned right there. And before I switch back over there, I'll show you, I'll see if I should be able to show you some items here. When you see a green, so as an example, that one's been, it was a cloud asset and I actually downloaded that. So if it's a cloud asset, it lets you know that it's a cloud asset and it needs to be downloaded first. So as you get more familiar with it, you'll actually see those, how they work. And then as you can see in this one, you see the green because whether they're cloud or they're mine, it doesn't really matter. you can see that they have already been downloaded and used. Now I'll go back and I'll go back to the Inventor. We'll just remember that image right here, and I'll switch over again. So here it's going to go into the Inventor. It'll save. All right, so that looks good. I wish I could switch fast enough so you could see this thing open up in the Inventor. You'd see that it would be saying, hey, I'm going to update. And there's a little window that comes across and says it updates. And like I said, you'll have to trust me, but there it is. There, it's in the exact position it was in before. And so no magic there, just you're just not seeing it automatically. So if I want to add a conveyor as an example, and I'll come into here and go grab a roller conveyor. I'll grab the one that I was going to go in here, and I'll say, you know, I want to add it to my favorites. So you notice that if I don't get the, hey, you got to download it, where do you want to put it? I'm going to put it right here in my favorites for right now. And if I wanted to move it into my personal assets, I would have had that option too. So now I have it in my favorites. So now it's sitting in here in my favorites. Left click, drag it in. And this is just one extra thing I wanted to show this to you. So now I can rotate it around. I can say, okay, I like where I got it. And now you can create these assets to automatically connect to each other. So that's another nice feature that's in here. So I can say, I want you to connect here. I want you to connect there. And you can rotate them. And these you can put, you know, I'll just put two of them there so you can see it. And as you highlight it, you can even change some other variables. So when you think about the properties, or when you're publishing or creating assets, that's really what you want to be thinking of. You're adding, especially when you come to an Inventor, if you know Inventor a lot, you got the parameters and you want to add additional controls on that. That's what that's like in the Inventor software. When you think about the AutoCAD, I like thinking of dynamic blocks. So if people don't know on here that don't know what dynamic blocks are, just Google that and see how you can create like one block, and it gives you options to change them to other variances of that block. So when you think of AutoCAD, you think of dynamic blocks, you think of Inventor, you think of parameters and properties and various things you can do, or maybe even iParts. You know, you think about it from that standpoint. So if I wanted to change a length, I actually have that as adjustable, or whoever created this has it as adjustable. So we can change lengths, we can change heights, and because they've allowed that to happen. So you can have the various parameters adjustable. And that's what you want to be thinking of when you're building your assets. So now I'll go back and I'll open it up back in the AutoCAD. Unfortunately, I will not be able to switch it fast enough, but you'll see that that one with the conveyor has already updated. And like I said, I can't even flip it fast enough. So I guess I could look at it from that point of view. Here are the conveyors that I put in. If I take this conveyor and I drag another one in here, I can connect it. So the same thing that you're seeing, how it worked in the other one, I can connect it here. Same thing. Now I got three of them. So that's really what you're looking at from a standpoint of the interoperability. You click this tool up here and it automatically opens it up and automatically converts it. And it's happening fast because I can't even switch screens fast enough for you to see it. And the only thing you're really missing is the fact that there's it opens up the other software and there's an update box that comes in for briefly that basically tells you that it's updating. So when you get better at working with the software, you'll start to understand assets a little bit more, the properties, how you can work with them. And like I said, when you're creating them, you're going to go into the asset builder. If you did want to create a chain asset, here you got the chain asset option. You can even convert to a chain asset. So you do have the options all sitting there, and it's going to take working with it realistically, besides installing it. Taking training, of course, will get you there faster, but working with it will make a big difference. And now you should be back to the PowerPoint that you were originally seeing. And I added this image this is actually a portion of that layout that I was showing you, one of the things to the left. And in the end, when you get working with it, you understand how some of the functionality goes. It really won't take you long to be doing layouts like this. And like I mentioned earlier, don't lock yourself into thinking it's just for what you're seeing here. Even though I kind of like this layout because it kind of shows it all from a factory standpoint, but showing conveyors and robots and various things, welding machines. But don't lock yourself into that. Think of I could do my office layout. You could do your house layout. You could do an architectural end of it. Don't lock yourself into thinking that it is truly just from a factory standpoint. I know in the beginning that's kind of how I felt. I was thinking, no, it's just from a factory standpoint. But no, I've ended up using it over the years for various things. And like I mentioned, even point clouds, right? And dropping them in. And if anybody knows Autodesk Recap, and you can tweak those point clouds and extract out smaller portions of what you want from a larger point cloud, that's always something to think about. So definitely play with it, work with it, and get familiar with it. And just like a lot of software that you learn, before you know, you'll be doing layouts like this. So that concludes what I wanted to show. And now it's just a matter of any questions that you have. Anybody that's on here that has any questions, now would be the time to ask them. And I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Todd. Yeah, we can give everybody a minute to maybe type in any questions so far. None have popped up. But yeah, that was a very, very good presentation. Thank you very much. And I didn't notice too much lag between switching from AutoCAD to Inventor, so no worries about that at all.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, and I mentioned that the only thing you technically missed besides the gap was the that update screen, and it happened so fast. And I should probably mention this for anybody that is kind of interested in the speed. I didn't do that much, but it's like a lot of software. When you make, the larger the file gets, yes, the speed's going to go a little bit. It's going to get slower as you progressively get larger. Anybody that's worked in large assemblies or large files in AutoCAD kind of goes with the territory, right? Better the machine you got, the faster it's going to go. That's what it comes down to. So any questions came up?
Yeah, we just got one from Greg. He asks, can you add your own equipment into this?
Yes, very good question. Now, I mentioned about your personal assets. You can publish them when you create the assets. I like using the word publish because I work with cable and harness, the routing systems, tube and pipe. You author it and then you publish it. So I think about that. It's kind of the same workflow, even though they don't really use those terms when you're building them. You can, building on your question, you can take any model that you have right now, whether it be AutoCAD or Inventor, you can convert that existing file to an asset. So the answer is yes, but think a little bit beyond that. What about if you went to the vendor website? This is what I've been doing in the last at least 5 years probably now, and it's just been getting better. I actually go to the vendor's site. If I don't have it, why recreate it? And I actually get a step file, and a neutral file like that, or just their AutoCAD file, and I've been converting them to assets. So so yes, out of the box, things that you create from scratch, things that you already have, and anything you download can be converted to an asset that can be used. So great question on that one. I should have said that earlier, right? So you can pretty much take any model or AutoCAD file that you have and turn it into an asset. So that's great.
Great, thank you. That looks like that's all the questions we have, which means to me that you answered all the questions somebody else would have.
Yes, that's how I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at it like I answered everything. So probably there's probably a lot more questions, but people are, can't think of them now or aren't ready to ask them or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if anyone does want to reach out, is there an email address you'd be willing to provide?
Oh yeah, yeah. They can reach me at T Schmook is my last name, so it's TSCHMOOCK at ASTI.com. And it was actually in the beginning of this screen, I think, right? Did I have it there? I can't remember. But yes, you can reach out, ask, and maybe just put in there, hey, I was watching your webinar and I just have a quick question, and then that'll get me right to what you're, get me in the frame of mind to understand where your question's coming from.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again,